All right, all right, all right. What is up, everybody? What is happening? Welcome into the Toilets to Titles podcast. This is episode number 38. It is conference championship weekend. Here with me today is my guy, my co-host. Dude's working hard. He's constantly grinding. I'm blessed to have him as my co-host. It's Justin Stevens at Justin FF Justin. What's cooking?
Hey, not a lot. You know how Saturdays have been here lately. We've got another game going on tonight or this morning. So we failed miserably last week, and it's not looking like a very good prospect this week either. But we're grinding. We're grinding on the court.
Well, stay positive, man. You gotta stay positive. You gotta be a rock for these kids. You can't go in there and show them defeat. You can't walk in with defeat on your face because then they're gonna wear it. You gotta be a rock.
Yeah. Well, sorry, kids.
Bring some cupcakes. That always cheers them up. You know, I don't know how far cupcakes will get you right now with COVID and everything. They might not want to be passing them around, but you bring them something. Bring them individually wrapped cupcakes. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, they don't have a very good coach. I don't think about that stuff.
Yeah, well, now you do. Now you do. There you go. Dunkin' Donuts. That's another thing. Bring some donuts. They love donuts. Kids love donuts. But anyway, Justin, you lied. You said not a lot's going on because a lot is going on. We just released an episode, last night? Why don't you tell us about that interview we had this week and where they could find it?
Yeah, so we did drop our interview last night that we did earlier in the week. We interviewed Peter Schultz of the Indiana Hoosiers. He's an offensive lineman, a scout team walk-on, and really cool kid, really good kid. Absolutely, just the kind of guy that you want to sit down and talk to too, because he had some stories to tell us about his high school days, about Coach Tom Allen. I mean, we talked quite a bit. We even talked a little bit about Eminem.
Hey, wow, man.
Because he's from Detroit. So we got a lot of good talk in with him, and also that's the first episode that we really put in a lot of work for the intro and editing and stuff like that. So it's actually a pretty sharp episode. We still have a lot to clean up, not gonna lie, but we're evolving, so we're moving forward and good things are happening.
And then, are you comfortable talking about what you worked on last night, or is that something that's hidden yet? Or
absolutely, yeah, I can talk about it. No, also, I started up my new show, the Ball Handlers Show, with MLO, and I snagged an interview with Blake Beamer, the assistant baseball coach at Ball State, and he's also the head recruiting coordinator for Ball State for their baseball team. And again, that dude was absolutely amazing. He had some great insight on how recruiting works at the college baseball level, and a little bit of insight on how he coaches certain players. A particular player, Dre Jameson, that was drafted in the first round by the Arizona Diamondbacks this past Major League Baseball draft in 2020. So that particular show is going to be based around me learning things that I did not know before. So like I specifically wanted to hear more about the recruiting process at the college baseball level. So I went out and found a college baseball recruiter and I interviewed him. So that's how that show is going to be set up. Not going to be nearly as many episodes as what we have here, but yeah, you guys can check out the Ball Handlers Show. It's going to drop on the MLO network, so it's going to be through Moonlight and Outdoors, through YouTube, their Facebook, all that sort of stuff. Which, speaking of Facebook, John, we are also right now, the three platforms that we're recording live right now is our Facebook page, When a Family Breaks Facebook page, because that went over better than Periscope. So we will probably be dropping Periscope for the foreseeable future, and then of course our YouTube channel. So I just wanted to throw that out there before you got thrown off with that later.
Right on, man. I'm going to update our how to listen notes to put Facebook in the spot of Periscope, because that is correct. But all right, so Justin's busy. We're busy. We're steamrolling into the off season. You can find this show on Twitter at Toilets to Titles. If you're watching us any other place than through Twitter. If you heard of us somewhere else, we're on Twitter at Toilets to Titles. Nate, who's not with us this week, is at Nate @FF_Dirt19. You could find me on Twitter at Coach Sheps. And then Justin, again, is at JustinFF_. And to listen to us, however you're listening to us, the other ways you can listen to us, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on YouTube, Podbean. Currently, we're on Periscope, but we're going to get off that, Facebook, and Spotify. All right. And however you're listening to us, if you could go to YouTube, like our channel, like our episodes, subscribe, and then hit the little bell so you're alerted, when we go live, that would be greatly appreciated. Throw some comments in there. That helps the algorithm, helps boost us up. Same with Apple Podcasts. If you don't mind, throwing us a 5-star review, that would be great, because we are going to be doing giveaways throughout this off season. We got 2 guys coming on the episode today that we're in the first ever Frankenstein League, and we're going to do 2 more this coming season. So if you want to get in there, throw us an Apple Podcast review, throw us a good one. We're going to be giving away a free entries. All right. So do want to mention, Justin mentioned my page, When a Family Breaks, where we do like sports cards discussion, sports memorabilia, sales, all that stuff. I'm doing Super Bowl boxes right now, so it's a little bit of a Toilets to Titles, When a Family Breaks thing. Got some Super Bowl boxes. If you go to the page, it's at Toilets to Titles on Twitter. I'll share the link to the Facebook group. You guys can go check it out. These boxes are filling up. All right. You'll see it on that link. You'll see where people are commenting their $5 boxes, full payout. If this thing fills up, I might do another one. So yeah, if you want to get in some Super Bowl boxes, we already got a few guys who listen to the show that are in that. That being said, all the formalities are done. Now we can start bringing on some guests. We have a good guest coming on today. He's a guy who really knows his stuff. He's a fantasy and draft analyst for Fake Pigskin. He's a co-host of the Debbie Marketplace podcast. And he's a draft analyst for SteelCityInsider.net. You know him well. Shane Hallam, at Shane P. Hallam on Twitter. Let's bring him in. Shane, man, it's very good to have you, especially now that this NFL draft discussion is really it's getting close. This is no longer a pipe dream. We talked earlier in the off season. We talked during the season. We were bringing up prospect names, but it just seemed so far down the road that it was hard to imagine how it was all going to pan out. But now it's starting to fall into place. And another big piece of the puzzle is coming this week. It's the Senior Bowl. We're bringing you on to discuss it. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing good. It's prime time. We got three NFL games left, right? And then boom, it's just full on draft season. So I'm excited to come on with you guys. I always enjoy it, and excited to follow the Senior Bowl this week. I'll be, covering it virtually, but that they had a virtual option for media this year. So we'll see. I don't know what that access is going to look like, but we'll see how it goes. I just can't wait for everything to be full draft. That's when I really enjoy football the most.
Yeah, man, it's excellent. I can't wait. And man, so there's 3 games left, but there's also this Senior Bowl, and this Senior Bowl is I would say the 4th, because we're not having a combine this year. So this is going to be like an environment that the players can't control, right? Because I would think, I'm sure other things are going to pop up. Brandon Marshall's doing something, and when college teams are going to have their own I guess pro days, right? But that's like a controlled environment. This is an environment where they aren't in control, and they're going to have to react rather than, prepare and plan. So this is going to probably be the realest thing we're going to get. And I'm really looking forward to it. And they're doing a good job of bringing in some big name guys. Like the fact that they were able to get Devontae Smith. The guy's got nothing else to prove. He's not playing, but he's going to be going there for interviews. You know what I mean? And I think that's a great Senior Bowl. Hell yeah. Shane, I do owe you an apology. Put this in the chat. Me and Shane are in a bunch of leagues together, as is Justin. And before Clemson played Ohio State, I got on short, and I was adamant Clemson's going to Clemson by 20. And no matter what Shane said, I didn't hear it. And then Ohio State went and spanked Clemson, and Shane was correct. I was wrong, and I owe him and the Ohio State University a big apology.
Well, it was a fun argument. I definitely
wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I
What's
mean,
that?
it was a fun argument. I was definitely being a little homerish myself, but I'm glad it worked out. The Buckeyes at least got to the national championship and then got spanked themselves. But it's fun. I'll take it. I'll take getting there as well.
Man, that was Justin Fields at a week. He had a huge week. He was riding high, man. It was like before that week, it was like, wait, is Zach Wilson going to get drafted before Justin Fields? Like, is he the guy? And then all of a sudden it was, is Justin Fields going to get drafted above Trevor Lawrence? And then it all kind of rolled backwards and things kind of settled out. But all right, we got another guest today. We are going to be blessed with another great member of the fantasy football community and a good friend of the show. He's a member of. He's the voice of Fusion at Fusion FFB. I can't speak this morning. The coffee's not fully digested. He's the Fusion FFB podcast, FusionFFB.com at generally_aware. And that's Joshua Bigby. Joshua, what's cooking? Does he hear me?
Mouse over here. Good morning.
Hey, man, how we doing?
Doing good. Oh, that's way too big.
We like it. We live big here, man. You're right.
Especially head on the wall. Not really, but anyway. So yeah. Good morning. I'm apparently, if we're gonna talk prospects, I'll be listening a lot, but that's fine. That's great.
I know you and Justin did an episode last night. What were you?
We were
what
were
you talking about?
So last night he was asking what last night was about, Josh. So last night was what they call the Friday night AMA with Sleeper Wire. So I'm actually kind of surprised that we even talked about football, to be honest with you. It's usually a lot of other stuff, and it did turn into a lot of other stuff, especially after the camera went down.
Where can our listeners find that?
I believe it's Sleeper Wire, right?
At Sleeper Wire Show on Twitter, and it would be up there on recent.
All right, so go check that out. All right, so Joshua might be listening a little bit, but you will definitely be hearing from him a lot when we're talking about the last week's playoff matchups and this week's playoff matchups. Same with Justin. I'm sure he's going to be doing the same. But Shane, I do want to give you the floor. You're a big time NFL draft analyst here, and we're going to talk Senior Bowl. So before we get into some names to watch headed into the Senior Bowl, what are your overall thoughts on this draft class coming in? I think Shane's muted. Shane, let's unmute there.
Look, I think it's an interesting draft class all around. From a fantasy perspective, you have some intriguing pieces. The wide receiver class again is pretty loaded, right? I think that is, after last year, people are going to have pretty high expectations. And I think we have, 10, 11, 12 guys that can step in and, have a role immediately on an NFL team. And that's fairly rare for a wide receiver class. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see another 6-7 go in the first round. And then you're kind of forced into that draft capital. So, I think it's going to be an intriguing battle at the top of that group. Jamar Chase from LSU and Devonta Smith from Alabama of who's going to go first. And then we'll see where the other pieces kind of fall within that. I think the running back class is thin. I think, once again, people are going to have some high expectations after the success of last year's rookies. But I really think there's kind of three guys that can be 3-down backs. And then I think, there's a number of role players. I'm sure a few will emerge, a few could emerge, but
who are those three? Just so we get that out there.
I think Najee Harris from Alabama is going to go in the first round. I think Travis Etienne from Clemson, who's my number one back, will go in the top 50. And then I think Javonte Williams, the running back from North Carolina, is going to be the third back off the board and has that size, speed, catching combination. And so after that, I think you have players that are really good catching the football that, can play in his own scheme. You have players that are really.
Jefferson? What about Jamar Jefferson? I like him, man. I think he could be an every down back.
Look, I like Jamar Jefferson. He's just not like super athletic, right? We kind of have this group of Jamar Jefferson, of Trey Sermon, Ramondre Stevenson we'll talk about today. Guys that are big backs, or are more kind of straightforward runners that don't have this elite athletic ability, right? That you want in kind of that pure number one running back, And so, I think last year we identified that kind of that big four as these guys that could do it, and other guys emerged, but it's always funny as a draft analyst to look at a draft and say, I think this is a little bit worse, right? And then the closer you get to the draft, you just kind of throw that off because we want everyone to be really good, And I mean, I do it too. Like I definitely fall in that trap, right? Because I like a lot of these players. I like Jamar Jefferson. I like some of the guys we'll talk about in the Senior Bowl, but I think you just got to be realistic early on to say, okay, what are my expectations, and try to kind of stick with that. Not to say don't draft anyone, but be realistic.
Wide receivers.
Draft wide receivers again. Yeah. Your dynasty teams will be filled with wide receivers, and that's it. But I think in redraft, that's probably the route to go. It's a better QB class this season. I think we definitely have 4 clear first round picks, and 2 guys that have a shot but probably won't go there. We'll talk about in the Senior Bowl, and then
Lawrence, Fields, Lance, and Wilson.
Yeah, I think those 4 are definitely going to go in the first round. I think Trey Lance it might be the one. Yeah, I think kind of the top 3 are. Lawrence is by himself. I think Fields and Wilson right now in the NFL are pretty close. You could see Zach Wilson go above Justin Fields. It could happen. I wouldn't do that, but I think some NFL teams might. So I wouldn't be overly surprised. I think Trey Lance is kind of the wild card. He's only had 1 year of experience in North Dakota State. That's usually not a good sign for the NFL. Usually, we saw Dwayne Haskins 1 year of experience. That usually is you're not ready. As good as Trey Lance is, his physical talents and his running abilities out of this world, someone's going to take a chance on him. But
I can see a team falling in love with his traits, and I could, regardless of who goes to, whether it's Wilson or Field, I'm not saying he's going to go higher than either of them, but I could see a team falling in love with him and him being the 3rd quarterback off the board. I could see, and everybody being shocked. I could see that.
I agree with you. I mean, I think it definitely could happen. And my co-host on the Devy Marketplace, Kane Fassell, is from Lance's hometown, small town in Minnesota. So they're kind of pulling for him. He definitely a high character young man. So someone fall in love with that in the interviews and on the board, and you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And you never want to use last year or any other year as an example, right? But I hear a lot like, well, Jordan Love won the first round, so anyone can go. This player can go. Almost anyone can go the first round if you want to use that as a benchmark, right? So, but those kind of big 4, and then tight end is, man, it's just a wild year. The Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida, who's the clear number 1. He'll be probably a top 15, top 20 pick. The hype is getting out of control for him and what he can do. I mean, he's actually not my tight end 1, though I know he's going to go 2 rounds higher than the guy I have.
Brevin Jordan, year 1?
Yeah, I have Brevin Jordan from Miami. Pat Freiermuth from Penn State, I think without the injury would be much closer. It might be the tight end 2 off the board. I think Brevin Jordan, a healthy Brevin Jordan, is so good after the catch. Kyle Pitts is awesome. I mean, he literally some of the best range I've seen from a tight end since maybe Kellen Winslow II. I mean, it's probably been almost 20 years since we've seen someone like this.
Yeah.
So just the way he can catch the ball, people are kind of saying, hey, this is the best tight end prospect ever. This guy's the number 1 wide receiver. Take him. I mean, there are people out there on Twitter, take him 101 in your dynasty rookie drafts. I mean, to me, and like I said, we do a podcast in the Devy Marketplace about value. That's not good value. He's never going to get above that value as a tight end, right? You have to be Travis Kelce to hit that value. So, that's why I'm not going to have a lot of them. I'm not going to spend that kind of capital on him. But the excitement is out there. I would say don't get locked in taking them too high above some of these receivers. But that I think we're going to hear a lot about Kyle Pitts coming up.
Shane has a long game right now. Shane knows Shane knows we're all in leagues with him, and Shane clearly wants Kyle Pitts to fall a little bit. So he's really talking him down so that we don't draft him.
I mean, look, we are in a 2 tight end league together, which makes it a little more interesting, right? But even then, I mean, just tight end value, I think it's an issue. So feel free to take them super high chips. I'm fine with that.
Hell yeah. All right, so that's a little bit of a primer for this coming year's draft class. Now the Senior Bowl is coming up this week. The game is going to be played on the 30th. They're going to be practices this week. Like you said, Shane, you got some media access, but it's virtual, so we don't really know how that's going to go, how it's going to be able to be covered. But we're going to be staying tuned, and we're going to be keeping you posted. And again, follow at Toilets to Titles on Twitter. Follow us all on Twitter. I'm sure we're going to be sharing stuff and whatnot to any clips we see or interviews or blurbs from reporters. We'll be sharing all that stuff because this is a fun time. So what I do want to discuss is some big name. I want to discuss a few things here, but we're going to talk about some big names to watch at certain positions, okay, and kind of our overall thoughts on these players. And we listed some players, and we have a lot of similar players on here. I do want to start with Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace, he's senior, 5'10", 217, unconfirmed. All this stuff is unconfirmed because he's, they team player.
The nice thing is you'll get it at the Senior Bowl. They weigh these guys in, so you actually get the real measurements, which we wouldn't get till the pro day otherwise.
So Tylan Wallace is a guy who I'm very excited to see there. I think he could be a big-time riser. Years past, every year over the last few years, there's been a wide receiver who's skyrocketed. Look back at Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, guys that just rise, at the Senior Bowl. And I think Tylan Wallace is going to be that because he's just so explosive, and he does such a good job of getting open, high points in the football. He's good after the catch. And, again, I'm just very excited to see this guy. So, Shane, what are your thoughts on Tylan Wallace? What are you looking for from him this week?
Yeah, I think he's my highest rated player that I expect to play. I mean, we'll see if he does. Devonta Smith clearly isn't, but I have Tylan Wallace right now as my wide receiver 8, which sounds low, but it's not. I mean, that's on that first round fringe this year with how many guys I think will go that high. I mean, I think Tylan Wallace, kind of exploded very early in his college career, which is usually a good sign, right? If a guy at 19, 20 years old, breaks out, then usually that means they're a really good player. It's pretty simple. So dealt with some injuries, dealt with some adversity at quarterback. I think this went, I went to the Senior Bowl for years. Some of the best assets for a wide receiver to have to impress is speed, right? Because when you're in shorts and it's one-on-one, it's really easy to beat corners when you can kind of go deep. It's really impressive. I think it's something that Tylan Wallace has with that size that will make him kind of rise upwards a little bit. So I think at the end of this week, it's possible we could be talking Tylan Wallace in the first round for sure.
Definitely, because this is a big, because he played in the Big 12, and you see a lot of wide receivers put up monster numbers in the Big 12 and then come to the NFL and not necessarily have the ability to do that. So the fact that he's at the Senior Bowl and he's going to be going against some big competition, we're really going to see what he is and who he is and what he's capable of. So there's another wide receiver coming out of the University of Florida who's been a big name over the past few months. This guy, I didn't hear much about him headed into the year, and now he's again skyrocketing, and that's Kadarius Toney. Why don't you give us a little breakdown on him?
If you want to have like a lot of fun just watching a player, I think Kadarius Toney's that player in this class to like go on YouTube. And I don't like to watch highlights when scouting, but sometimes if a player's fun to watch, I'm like, look, I just want to watch a highlight reel. And Kadarius Toney, I think, is that guy to me because just the way they used him in Florida is the way that an NFL offense probably wants a player like this, where you can run him out of the backfield, you can put him in the slot, you can have him run reverses. He has that kind of athletic ability and explosion, and he's a player who kind of the opposite of Tylan Wallace, right? Didn't really do anything. He was marked as an athlete up through his college career, so not even a receiver per se. And he dealt with some injuries. And I always had guys ahead of him, right? Van Jefferson the last 2 years, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's always a question. I think we always have that question: why did this guy not do something sooner? But I think Tony he's getting first round buzz now. I think he's definitely in that conversation if a team likes that. Ultimately, for fantasy, I think he's a player you have to kind of wait around a little bit and see what you think. Like, is this a guy that's going to he's not going to get 70, 80 catches in PPR, right? He's not going to be, it might be that player like what happened to Brandon Ayuk, goes in the first round, but gets drafted in the second in dynasty rookie drafts. I think we could see that. So I'm excited to see him at the Senior Bowl. I hope they let him use his creative juices a little bit, maybe let him run with the running backs a little bit and have some fun. So I'm really excited for him.
Urban Meyer is going to be watching. All right. They got no ties. Urban Meyer Urban Meyer was the Florida coach, but there's no ties to Kadarius Toney, I assume. I think this type of player he's going to be watching. There's a few guys, Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, and I know he's not at the Senior Bowl. Daz Newsome, a few guys that have juice, play that position where they have versatility. So it's going to be very interesting. There's another guy. I'm going to cut from big name players to watch to lesser known players to watch for this player, just because I think him and Kadarius Toney are going to have like an athlete off, and that's Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan. I think this guy, being on the same field as Kadarius Toney, with what people I assume are thinking of Kadarius Toney right now, he has an opportunity to plant his flag and say, I'm just as good or I'm better, playing against the same competition that Toney is. So this is another guy, about 5'9", 190, but this guy's got wheels. He might be the fastest guy at the Senior Bowl. He could really fly, and he's a big-time athlete. So again, he played at Western Michigan. All right, and he was hurt in 2019, broke his collarbone, but he had a pretty big season. He has 768 yards in 6 games this year. So what are your thoughts on Dwayne Eskridge?
Look, I think usually at the Senior Bowl you don't get many sleepers. I think Dwayne Eskridge is the biggest sleeper of the Senior Bowl. I'm right there with you. I once he got the invite, I was like, okay, I got to go watch this guy. I watched him, and I mean, I kind of fell in love with him as a player. Just the way that at his size he gets off the line, I think is super impressive. He doesn't just bow into physicality, really good footwork, and he's a player that gets up to speed really quickly. Like, he hits that top gear running routes, not just running a 9, but on a slant, on crossing routes and out routes. He doesn't lose much speed on his break. To me, that's always super impressive and really tough to cover. I think if you want to say, who's going to be kind of the breakout star, who's going to be a name that everyone's going to start talking about, I think Dwayne Eskridge will be that guy from this receiver group. I think he's going to make some SEC corners look silly in practice, and when that happens, people really take notice.
All right, so all right, let's discuss a running back now. Let's move on to Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech. All right. You didn't have him on your list, but this is a guy, and then I'm going to pass it over to you, and you could just run down the rest of your list. But Khalil Herbert is a guy that I enjoyed watching. He's another 5'9", a little undersized, 212 pounds. He had 1,100 yards rushing this year, 7.6 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. He's the type of guy, he doesn't do more than needs to be done, but he gets it done. I think he's got good vision. He's an inside out runner, finds space. He's good with angles, knows what angles to take to make defenders miss, and he runs tough. He's a tough guy. So I don't know if this guy necessarily has the juice, but he gets the job done. So what are your thoughts on Khalil Herbert?
I'm definitely intrigued. I think this year going to Virginia Tech was a huge move for him. He was at Kansas before this, was the backup. So he really got a chance to show what he had, and I think he definitely flashed it at Kansas. I mean, there are a couple guys that I respect that talked about him before the season. I was like, yeah, whatever. Here's this backup in Kansas, like, gonna do anything, and he had a really good season. I think that size and short area athleticism boxes get checked because he is. He has some beef on him, but can move with the footwork pretty well. So I think he'll be maybe if he has a really good week, he could and a good pro day, maybe he could sneak into day 2, but probably a day 3 running back. Like Joshua Kelly was someone that is impressive, was good at the Senior Bowl, and has some talent. And if he gets in a good situation, then you start getting intrigued.
It's funny you mentioned Joshua Kelly because that was my comparison. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I didn't. So that worked out well.
Yeah. And I think I posted a tweet on there asking, who people that have watched them both, which one did they prefer in college? And I think they're very similar because I didn't think Joshua Kelly was a big time athlete. His film didn't wow me, but he got the job done. He was good for what he needed. All right, so you got a list of some other players that are big name guys to watch, some quarterbacks, some other running backs, wide receiver, and some tight ends. So why don't you go through these guys? And Joshua, I know I got you in here as well. So if you have any thoughts on any of these players, if you watch them, feel free to chime in. If not, we'll be discussing the playoffs later on. So just poke in when you're ready. All right, Shane, go ahead.
Sure. At quarterback, I think for big names, we got to look at the big 2 that could compete for the first round, right? Mac Jones from Alabama announced fairly recently that he'll be down at the Senior Bowl. Once again, I don't know how much he'll play. I think he should because he's kind of going up against Florida quarterback Kyle Trask, who had the really good season up until the bowl game. Both these guys were finalists in the Heisman Trophy. And honestly, the Senior Bowl is such a good opportunity for quarterbacks to really make an impact. I mean, we saw, let's just take a guy that just retired, Justin's boy, Phil Rivers. The Senior Bowl is what put him into the top 10. I mean, he was kind of
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you just say Phil Rivers?
Yeah.
I love it. I'm in.
Look, I bet Phil. That's what his wife calls him. So
it's Phil from now on. That's it.
Yeah,
it's not
Phil.
It's stated. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you know why I call him Phil? I can never remember how many L's are in his first name in Phillips, so I just never write it. That's what happens.
Fair.
But like he was a first round fringe quarterback. Went to the Senior Bowl, lit it up, turns into a top 10 pick and a potential Hall of Famer, right? So, I don't think either of these players have, huge upside. That's the problem. But if Mac Jones comes in and shows that he can throw to guys that aren't Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, and if Kyle Trask, comes in and shows some improvement in footwork, they're both to my knowledge going to play for the Carolina Panthers coaching staff, who kind of need a quarterback. So it's possible they could fall in love with one, trade back, or take one in the second round, right? So I think that's what this is set up to be. Running back wise, I think we have some really good names. I mean, you mentioned Khalil Herbert, Ramondre Stevenson, the running back out of Oklahoma, is
people are on polar sides with him. So I really want you to get into him a little bit because it seems like there's a fan club and then there's people who think he's going to be, basic.
So he was a junior college player who transferred to Oklahoma 2019. And, they had a lot of running backs there, but he ended up kind of taking hold of that situation late in the season and then added 10 pounds. He was at 236 pounds in 2019, added 10 pounds to be 246 listed this year. Then when he got healthy, I mean, just flat out dominated everyone in the Big 12, dominated Florida in the bowl game. So when you see, there's just not many running backs in this draft that are 6 foot tall, 246, and that kind of have the footwork and foot speed that he has. I think he's a good player. If people are going to be like, he's Derrick Henry, right? I mean, any like big back with some athletic ability, like, it's Derrick Henry again. He's definitely not that. He doesn't have that type of athletic ability, but I just think he's super intriguing at that weight. I don't think he's going to be a 3-down running back. So maybe that puts me on the, polar off on the bad end, but I think he's a good player. Like you take him in the 4th round of the NFL draft. I mean, you can't bring him down when he runs for a yard. You have a decent offensive line. I think it's a guaranteed first down on 3rd and short. Like, I think that's the type of player that he's going to be. But I'm intrigued. Maybe the athletic ability will impress me here. So I'm definitely intrigued with him. And then the other big name, Kylan Hill from Mississippi State. He came into the year pretty highly touted. Mississippi State was kind of a dumpster fire this season. So he opted out pretty soon after the early season, just because of Mike Leach from Washington State going there. The head coach definitely pass friendly, pass heavy, and Kylan Hill kind of showed what he needed to show and opted out. So he's someone that I think I'm a little bit lower on as my RB10, but definitely has a skill set, I think, to be in that top 7 running backs. And maybe my favorite is Michael Carter, the running back from North Carolina. I mentioned Javonte Williams, who's my number 3. Michael Carter, his teammates, did just as well statistically at North Carolina this season. He's a little bit older than Javonte Williams is, but and a little bit smaller. But he's, he ran for more yards. He over 1,200 yards this season. He's almost 5'8", 200 pounds. Had a 300-yard game against Miami. Rushing game. He looks athletically gifted, and I think he's maybe that sleeper running back to look for in this draft.
He led the ACC in rushing yards and yards per attempt this season. He had He had 1,245 rushing yards, and he had an 8-yard average.
Crazy.
Pretty ridiculous. Now, Gio Bernard, Michael Carter. I'm sure you watch them both. Coming out of UNC, which one did you prefer?
Gio Bernard, I think for sure. I think Gio Bernard was more elusive in terms of in the open field. I think that he was a little bit better than Michael Carter, but that's not. Gio Bernard was one of the top running backs off the board in that class. I think Michael Carter could sneak into the 3rd round if he's lucky. He could pass guys like your boy Jamar Jefferson or Chuba Hubbard with a good week, perhaps. But I'm really interested to see, because I think Michael Carter could go 3rd round. He could go 6th round. It's a wide range.
All right. So why don't you tell us about the wide receiver and the tight ends you got?
Yeah, wide receiver Sage Surratt, who I'm not a big fan of. He came out of Wake Forest. He opted out this season, but there's been a little 1st-round buzz early in the year, and I feel like it's kind of died down because he hasn't played. Right, a lot of these guys that haven't played. It's funny. We said other than Jamar Chase, I feel like every player that opted out is just getting crushed. But Sage Surratt last year, 66 catches, over 1,000 yards. Showed some juice the year before. He's big, 6'3". He's almost 220 pounds. So you have kind of that size to get off the line, but you have really good speed, to move in. And he beat some good defenses last season. Now, he didn't play Clemson, and I think that kind of hurts him. That's why I thought he should play this year. He hasn't played Clemson in his career, but did really well. So, Sage Surratt, I think I'd rather have Tylan Wallace. I'd rather have Kadarius Toney and Elijah Moore, you mentioned before. But I know there's a lot of people high on Surratt and looking for him to maybe redeem himself this time. And tight end, Kenny Yeboah is probably the best from Ole Miss. Had a really good season. Ole Miss was past crazy, but he's definitely more that receiving type that you want in fantasy football. So I think he's a guy to look for as kind of a sleeper tight end. He had almost 20 yards average per catch. So down the field kind of threat. And then a guy I really like, I know was on your list too, Sheps, was Hunter Long from Boston College. I thought his season, I really like Phil Jurkovic, the quarterback they have, transferred from Notre Dame, and really had a connection with Hunter Long. 57 catches this year, the most on the team. He was kind of Mr. Reliable, can block, can get off the line. He's one of those guys I think gets on the field earlier than we think. I actually did a mock, had him go into my Steelers in the 4th round. I think that's the type of player. And then Hunter Long's mom actually followed me on Twitter, which is always a little weird when the parent starts following you, right? Yeah. Because then you're like, can I say like bad things? Like, look, I've had parents come at me before. And so I like Hunter Long at least. So no bad things for me about him.
Mind your P's and Q's, man. You're being followed by a mom now. All right. Well, I want to briefly go through some lesser names to know so we can get into conference championship talk. A guy I had on my list is Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana, the running back. 5'11", 218 pounds. He had in 10 games, he had 878 yards on the ground, 6.2 yards per carry. He had 11-7, 5.8 yards per carry, but he got into the end zone 16 times on the ground. So pretty impressive. He's another guy who's got juice. He's got that quick twitch, and he's got a big, strong frame. So he's exciting to watch because of that quick twitch and how he molds it into his power. You know what I mean? He uses both together. But sometimes with his size, I do think he lacks a little bit of strength. I'd like to see him bully guys a little bit more than make them miss. So what are your thoughts on Elijah Mitchell?
I'm a really big fan. I mean, I think he's a player who could be a late round pick that you pick up in the late rounds of a rookie draft, and he pays dividends if he goes to a good situation. I mean, I think
Robinson, is he this year's James Robinson? Or
look, I got someone a little deeper that we'll talk about afterwards. But I think Elijah Mitchell's a good candidate for that, to be someone that you can get at a really good value that could start if he's in a good situation. You know, I agree with you. I think he could be more physical. You know, obviously there's issues. He's not super fast. But I really like the vision. I really like the technique. I think he's such a smart player. And, I think he really knows how to make guys miss and be a little more elusive. So I'm really excited, actually, for him in the senior. Running back is tough in the Senior Bowl practices. You don't get to show much. You don't get to hit guys. You know, the guys can't hit you. Like, it's really hard to know other than blocking and catching. But hopefully in the game he gets a shot.
All right, and then another guy, my good friend, Trevon Grimes, wide receiver out of Florida, 6'4", 218 pounds. He was a 5-star recruit, went to Ohio State, got injured coming out of high school. You know, never really tore. I think he tore his ACL. It's hard to say. He was I think like a 4.5 athlete coming out of high school. Tore his ACL. Took him a while to get that speed back. But within the last 2 seasons, he's really starting to look like he could take the top off the defense again. And again, he's 6'4", running, a high 4.4, low 4.5. Not confirmed at the combine, but those are numbers we're hearing. And for a guy that size and that fast, he's got great body control. Like, he in the air. He's got great body control, great ball tracking ability. I think he is a guy because, he was around Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts. So he was the third wheel. I don't think he got as many targets because of those guys. But this is a guy who could really take a step and find a spot somewhere in the NFL. What are your thoughts on Grimes?
I'm excited to see him. Like that size, speed, man. Yeah, you can't teach that, and teams are gonna love it. So I think he maybe goes higher than the stats would indicate. And I'm down for that. I think he's the upside swing of the Senior Bowl of this draft at receiver. If that size and speed combo work out, he's gonna be hard to stop. So I'm excited to see him for sure.
And he coming out of high school, he was more like he was above in rankings Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. Like he was a higher prospect than those guys when he went to Ohio State. Not that always means something, but those are big names to be next to. So there's definitely a high ceiling for him. All right, so why don't you bring us through the rest of your guys here?
I'll go quick. Quarterback. I think Kellen Mond from Texas A&M is probably the guy outside the big 7 that I think has the upside. 3-year starter, big arm. Has a little bit of athletic ability. Make some really dumb mistakes every game. And I think that's what knocks him down. So maybe this is a chance to show that. And then Jamie Newman, the quarterback from Wake Forest, transferred to Georgia, opted out, didn't play. This is the first time we're really going to get to see him. He's a player that played really well. I think would have had a shot at the first round if he played well at Georgia. Instead, he didn't play. Now he's kind of a mid-rounder. Maybe this is a way to rectify that draft stock. At running back, the other guy I mentioned is Chris Evans from Michigan, running back. He's someone that was kind of highly thought of going into the year. Really big athletic profile. Thought he would be the starter at Michigan. Michigan's a terrible at producing offensive talent and making them better. And so he didn't do very well. But this could be a time for him to showcase what he has, and that it's a Harbaugh problem and not a Chris Evans problem. So I'm really intrigued with him. Wide receiver, a couple guys that I really like that aren't getting talked about a lot. Josh Palmer from Tennessee, kind of a bad season all around in Tennessee, some controversy now. I mean, it's been pretty nasty. But he was someone coming into the year I pegged as a really good sleeper. Shi Smith from South Carolina, receiver, had an excellent season. He's a player. I think he's our late round guys that maybe have some upside in deeper dynasty leagues, taxi squad types that you should look at. And then tight end Noah Gray from Duke. He was kind of the number one receiver there for Duke, really rose through the process. And a guy that he's actually playing fullback at the Senior Bowl because they had a guy leave, and that's Kylan Granson from SMU. He's definitely an H-back type tight end who it was a really, really good pass catcher. Really has some of that juice at 6'3", 235. If he plays fullback, probably not good for your fantasy team, but I think Kylan Granson, if he gets to a good situation, is another high upside swing at tight end.
All right, excellent. All right, so before we move on to the playoff recap and prediction, I did ask you a question. Who is this year's James Robinson? The world wants to know, especially fantasy football players.
Look, I think I dropped James Robinson on this podcast before the season last year. I was a big fan of him. I'll never hit that height again.
Don't set the bar.
I mean, I don't think you can't get better than that. Like number one rookie running back last year. Look, I think this is actually a much deeper player than James Robinson was, even. So I'm taking an even bigger swing here.
Write it down. So go ahead.
But Jaquan Hardy is a running back from Tiffin College, and he's a player that I really pegged coming into the season as this is the small school running back to get, right? We always have one or two small school running backs, and this year doesn't because they didn't play. And I think Jaquan Hardy, I don't think he's going to get drafted because he didn't play this year. No one played this year. But I think as an undrafted free agent, he's someone to look for. Really good catching the football. He's very different from James Robinson. He's good at catching the football, good at some of the outside zone runs. I think he has a little bit of speed. I can type in the chat room for Justin. But I think he has a really good head on his shoulders in terms of vision and seeing what's happened. I mean, he dominated and bullied the group that he played for, just like James Robinson did, just like David Johnson did. I mean, that's what these small school running backs do, and that's when you say that this guy
small school. Does that count?
Small enough, I guess. The MAC, you just crapping on the MAC over there, but so Jaquan Hardy, Tiffin. He'll get signed as an undrafted free agent for sure. And if he gets signed to Miami and they don't draft a running back, you never know.
All right, excellent. All right, now we could take a few breaths and we could bring in our other two guys here. We got Joshua and Justin are ready to hop back in. I know you guys have been sitting tight, and I apologize, but Shane, we had a lot to discuss in this Senior Bowl. We wanted to get everybody prepped, but now we can discuss some NFL playoffs, all right? So I want to recap last week. I know, Justin, you put in the recap from our predictions. But before we talk about who we picked and what we picked and how we did, let's just talk about the game. So, Joshua, I'm going to pull you in. Rams-Packers, Saturday. The Packers won 32-18. What were your thoughts on that matchup?
Actually, I'm in the live chat from last week. With my prediction, it's there on the record. If someone wants to look it up, I was 4 for 4.
Ooh, fire emoji.
So, yeah, no, I did kind of wonder aloud if that was going to be the game that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers fall apart like they often do in the playoffs. And I thought maybe with that Rams defense, but you saw very early on in the game that it was kind of disappointing. Like, you saw Aaron Donald getting flustered right off the bat. And it was a bad look, and it set a bad tone, I thought, for the rest of the game, that they couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers.
Yep, and also there's a lot of discussion between me, Justin, and Nate about Adams versus Ramsey. And I was a little chippy because I thought that, Ramsey got a bad beat because Adams scored a 1-yard touchdown on a pretty a gimme. And all of a sudden, he beat Jalen Ramsey. But I would have liked to see more from that matchup. But that was an exciting game. Justin, what were your thoughts on Rams-Packers? You're muted, my friend.
Sorry, I'm not used to talking. So my thoughts on that game was that Devontae Adams stole the show. I think he had one hell of a game against Ramsey. He killed it. No, I'm just playing. We've exhausted that. No, I enjoyed the game. Obviously, I chose the Packers to win that one. It was I got 3 correct. Not quite as good as Joshua down there. And Nate also went 4-0. So maybe those two can clash this weekend, because I do know Josh's picks from the show we did last night, and they're the exact opposite of Nate's. So we'll get a tiebreaker there for sure. But I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I call it a show because that's what it's going to be like with Aaron Rodgers on the field in the playoffs. He's not choking this year, Josh.
Ooh, yeah, I think Rodgers is going. Shane, you have any thoughts on last week's matchup?
No, I mean, I'm excited just to see the Packers offense keep rolling. It sucks. I think the Rams with a healthy quarterback with a little bit more offense maybe would have had a better shot there too. So I think that one we kind of knew going in that the Rams it'd be tough for them to win.
Yeah, and now that seems like there's a little dissension between McVay and Goff. I don't know if it's people looking too much into McVay's words, but it seems like McVay isn't really solidifying the fact that Goff is his guy going forward. So that'll be an interesting storyline to look into this offseason.
Is it to talk about Deshaun Watson going there?
Jets, man. Deshaun Watson's going to the Jets, so we don't really need to talk about anywhere else. We could do a whole episode on where he can go. Denver's going to be interested. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that are interested. But, all right, Ravens-Bills. Ravens kind of stunk it up. I mean, they held the Bills to 17 points, which is impressive, especially with the fact that they only scored 3. But that game I thought was going to be a little more exciting. I thought the Ravens were going to give the Bills a little more of a fight, but they didn't. Justin Tucker missed a few field goals, which was interesting. But, Joshua, what are your thoughts on that matchup?
That game probably was the one that I saw a lot of people going the other way with Ravens. I don't know if it's just because of Lamar Jackson and all that and the hype.
Also, I think the way the Colts played the Bills the week prior, for me, that made me think the Ravens could run a similar style game plan and keep it close.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is people maybe underestimating how good the Colts were.
True.
But I thought that the Ravens, look, Lamar Jackson's got to get his short game going in the passing. He's got to be able to move the ball. They started to do it a little bit with some passes to Willie Snead, but it seems like it's always big play that whole game. And maybe good credit to the Bills if that's what their defense was forcing them into. But they had a couple decent drives, especially coming out of the half, but then that's when he threw the touchdown interception. So yeah, Lamar Jackson's they're going to have to get that figured out, and he's going to have to be able to move the ball more consistently. Because when it comes to the playoffs, teams are going to be playing better defense. They're going to be locking those things down, and it's not like the regular season where you can just go off and have a big game with all those big plays.
Justin, what are your thoughts on last week's matchup?
Well, I wasn't. Baltimore's defense was their high point all season, and I wasn't really all that surprised that Buffalo was able to move the ball pretty well against that defense, because Buffalo's offense is just that good. But what I was surprised at was Baltimore's inability to get that run game going as effectively as they did the week before against Tennessee. Granted, Buffalo's defense is better than Tennessee's, but it's like they abandoned it early, and when they did go back to the well, they couldn't get anything out of it. So that was the big surprise for me.
Yeah, I feel like they should have involved Dobbins. Like, they went ahead and they cut Mark Ingram like right after the game. You know what I mean? And not that he was really fighting in there, but I think Dobbins is so much better than Edwards, and I think he should have been involved a little more. Shane, why don't you tell us your thoughts on Ravens Bills, and then go right into Browns Chiefs?
Yeah, I was one of those people that picked the Ravens, and I thought the same thing. Like I picked against the Bills every game, so I haven't gone too well for me. I'm going to do it again, but Yeah, I thought Lamar Jackson, the running game, could do something. The Bills are one dimensional too in a lot of ways, and so I thought the Ravens defense could focus on stopping the pass, just contain Josh Allen, and if you got to beat him with Devin Singletary, I think the Bills will have a problem. But yeah, I think that the Ravens need some playmakers. They need a big receiver. They need a number one. They need someone that can challenge a defense. I think that's important.
Just throw up the X for anybody listening and not watching. I think that should have been a little more involved, but maybe I'm just, waxing poetic about what Dez is at this point in his career. All right, Shane, what were your thoughts on Chiefs Browns?
Yeah, I think that the Browns played an admirable game. I think we knew what that outcome was going to be. Mahomes going down. Andy Reid, I think, coached a heck of a game, and I think that's the question mark going into. Baker Mayfield. I got a little more respect for me. I still don't have much. I still don't have much respect for him, to be honest. But he got a little bit more from me. He's played well in these playoffs. So Mahomes. I'm not too worried about the concussion, but the turf toe that he got, I think, really changed how they played and play that game, and that could be an issue this week.
Man, I think the Browns are one piece away on defense. They're going to get Delpit back, and I think he's a dude, but I don't think he's the piece. Like, I think he's going to help, but I think they're one piece away.
And then they'll get 5 wins next year. That's how the Browns roll. So
okay, Shay. So we heard Shay knock Michigan, and now we're here. So I'm sure you could guess where his allegiance lies. Joshua, what were your thoughts on Browns Chiefs?
I don't have much to say on this one. I kind of watched the game. It looked in hand, and then Mahomes went out, and suddenly it's like, okay, hold on, what's going on here? That something might happen, but they just couldn't pull it off. So, when Henny came in and ran, it was a funny play that sealed the deal for the Chiefs. But not much of a surprise. But I did think everything you said about the Browns was right on. That I don't think they're far away.
Man, I had money on the Browns. I'm sorry, the Chiefs winning by 7-11 or 7-10 and 11-14. And it was good odds on that, and they won by 6. And they were right in that area. If Mahomes didn't get hurt, I would have won me some money, but that hurt me. Justin, why don't you go ahead and tell us Browns Chiefs, and then give us your recap on Bucs Saints.
The only thing I have to add about the Browns Chiefs is that with that respect level that you were talking about, Shane, with Mayfield and Josh talking about the improvements, I think a lot of that has to do with Mayfield's maturity level and the fact that he's been in the league long enough now that he's starting to understand what his strengths and weaknesses are, and he's playing to that, and the coaches are playing to that. So let that be a lesson to you coaches out there, because it seems like the Cleveland Browns were ready to give up on their quarterback every other game for a long stretch. So you kind of stick with somebody for a while and let them mature in the league. I think that helps a ton. But yeah, obviously chose Kansas City for that one, just like everyone else, and got a little scary there towards the end, but with the injuries. But and then you wanted me to roll right into what?
Bucs Saints.
Oh, Bucs Saints. That game was the only one that bit me this week. So and that was only because after going 5-1 in the first round, I decided that I didn't want to change up any of the picks that I had made, but I was a little bit worried about it because obviously Tom Brady in the playoffs, you really can't count against him, because that's when his defense and his running game always steps up to bail him out. But I had to watch for Joshua's reaction there. But yeah, so I'm not surprised that they won, obviously, but I am a little bit upset. I hated to see Drew Brees go out like that, but at the same time,
he looked bad.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. At the same time, it looks like he's ready. He did not look like Drew Brees, and he didn't most of the season. And you could play a lot of that on rib injuries or whatever, and it is what it is. But he definitely did not look like Drew Brees.
All right, Joshua, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, that game didn't go exactly the way I thought. I did have Tampa Bay winning, but yeah, Brees did not look good. Although, even before that, I was saying they probably had a better chance of winning with Taysom Hill, which kind of says it all. That I was seeing replays, and there was all kinds of times when Brees was just not hitting open guys. Like Kamara was open, way open on short passes and things, and he just wasn't even So I don't know how you go from being Drew Brees that is distributing the ball to everyone, whoever's open all the time, to that. Um, you would usually associate a decline with something physically, but I don't know. On the Tampa Bay side, obviously the defense stepped up, but I think Brady did what he had to do. And people say, well, if the defense hadn't done that, then Brady wouldn't have won. Well, I think Brady could have done something if he had to. He does what he has to.
I think Devin White looked like the best player on the field. Devin White absolutely dominated. And if the Bucks make the Super Bowl, which I think it's going to be the Packers who make it now, the Packers are rolling. But if they do, I'm sure there'll be decent odds on Devin White winning the MVP. And I'm going to throw a little bit of money on that just because, he was all over the field. Shane, I'm going to just bring you right into Bucks Packers, man. Let's go right into our preview. We're cutting it close to the end here. Bucks Packers. This one's a juicy matchup. It's like the opposite. We got two young quarterbacks on the other side. We got two veteran quarterbacks on this side, and this is a big time matchup. So Bucks Packers. What are your thoughts?
I look. I think Rodgers is the best quarterback in this game by far. I think Brady's lost a little bit of it, but I think the Buccaneers are better coached. I think that their defense is better than the Packers' defense is. I think getting Vita Vea back is going to be huge to stopping the run against Aaron Jones. He's coming back. And we saw what happened the first matchup. And Rodgers struggled early, 38-10. Yeah, this one's in Green Bay. This one's in the snow. This one's in the cold. I'm picking the Buccaneers. I think Ronald Jones he's back and healthy. He's going to have a big game. I think if Rodgers, is forced to make a mistake, I think Davante Adams, again, is going to get kind of shut down. And now what do you have? And I think that's going to be the problem.
I want to say that on this show. Davante Adams doesn't get shut down.
Well, I don't think
7.9 yards per reception isn't that's a big day.
Look, and he'll get shut down as Davante Adams can. You can only contain him for a little while, but we saw Tyler Johnson, we saw Scotty Miller, do things for the Buccaneers. I don't think they need Antonio Brown. I don't think Brady's going to look great, but I think that offense will do enough. I think the Buccaneers squeak out a field goal victory.
I got money. I know I'm talking a lot about betting, but I have money on Ronald Jones having the most rushing yards this weekend. There's decent odds there. I think it was like 3.5 to 1. Buccaneers Packers, man. I'm excited for this one. I do think Rodgers and the Packers are going to pull it off. But when you're talking about it being in Green Bay and being in the snow, it makes me think of that quote from The Dark Knight, where when Bane's talking to Batman, or Dark Knight Rises, and he's like, darkness. You think darkness is your ally? Like, I was raised in it, and that makes me think of Brady, like coming from Gillette Field, coming from New England, like this is what he's playoff football in the snow, man. Like that's what he does, and that's going to bring me into Joshua. Joshua, let's hear your Bucks Packers analysis here.
I think you said it. I think Brady's. I pretty much said it before too. The Brady's going to do what he needs to, and it's going to be complementary football with running backs. I don't think he needs Antonio Brown. Go trade for. You have how many hours? Trade for Tyler Johnson in your dynasty leagues. Yeah.
Do it. All right, Justin, give me your Bucks Packers analysis, and then take it right into Bills Chiefs.
Yeah, I think what Tom Brady has needed to do up to this point has been enough to get him to this point, but it's not going to be enough to get him over the hump this time. Just because, and not because of Tampa Bay necessarily, but just because of the Packers. I really think they're that good. They're playing that well, and yeah, I mean, I chose the Packers to beat the Bills in the Super Bowl at the beginning of the playoffs, so I'm going to have to keep my bracket the way it is at this point. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Packers.
All right, and then Bills Chiefs. You're going with the Bills?
Yep, still gonna stick with the Bills. So I think that game has the potential to be a high-flying offense, a high-scoring game, but typically when we think that, we tend to see the other way. And Buffalo's defense is pretty good. I mean, I would take it over most defenses in the NFL. So if they can keep the Chiefs down, I mean, it's possible, and especially with Mahomes' toe injury. Obviously, that's not something that I figured in whenever I originally put in my predictions. When I took Buffalo, I just took Buffalo to win outright. But I think that could be kind of a lucky little churn in my favor. And then, just like I said last night on the AMA show, this is kind of like what Buffalo does, right? It's been a long time, but we expect them to make it to the Super Bowl and then lose in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with Buffalo to win this one.
Man, all right. Shane, Bills, Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs will win it. I just think it's really tough for maybe Josh Allen to keep this consistency. Tough for Sean McDermott, I think, to keep the coaching job that he's done. I think they're both will be brilliant in the future. Will make Super Bowls in the future. But I think even Mahomes with the injuries, I think the Chiefs are going to be well coached. They're going to be able to shut down the pass game. Like I said, try to force the Bills to beat you on the ground. I think you can win this football game. I think we see a lot more running from the Chiefs here, and some short passes to Tyreek Hill, to Kelsey. It's just going to be really tough to stop that offense, even if Mahomes is 80%. I don't think Mahomes is going to blow it up. Maybe throws a pick or two, but I think the Chiefs will win a close game.
All right, Joshua, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the Chiefs. I mean, I think that was actually what I had said in the chat last week was Tampa and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So, yeah.
All right, I got Packers. I got Packers Chiefs. I was gonna go Bucks, but my co-hosts have been hammering the Packers, and I've been losing every time I pick against them. So I'm gonna have to go Packers, and I'm hoping that I jinx them because I don't want to see them in the Super Bowl. I hate Aaron Rodgers, so. So I hope I'm wrong, but I do think the Honey Badger is going to show up this weekend, Sunday night. Honey Badger don't care. Honey Badger is going to pick off Josh Allen twice, 2 times, help lead that Chiefs defense into the Super Bowl. I think he's going to have a monster game. So I'm going Packers Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So next week we'll recap, our whole playoff analysis, where we are, who's up, who's down. I know last week, as opposed to what my original bracket was, I didn't do too well because I was trying to play catch up and I went a little bold, and my bold predictions did not work out for me. But that does it for the conference championship weekend episode. We got a lot in here, man. We got NFL draft discussion. Then we have great analysis from you guys on these matchups. First and foremost, Shane, I appreciate you coming on, man. Everybody can find him at Shane P. Hallam on the Twitter. And also, he's over at Debbie Marketplace, at Debbie Marketplace Podcast, and SteelCityInsider.net and Fake Pigskin. So, Shane, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
You having me.
Yeah, man. Whenever you want. We'll be talking a lot this offseason. And Joshua, thanks for coming on last minute, man. We appreciated you joining us. We appreciate talking some playoff action. You can find Joshua at generally_aware on Twitter, at FusionFFB and FusionFFB.com. Thanks, Joshua.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. And Justin, it's been fun. I know you kind of sat in the passenger seat on this one, and I apologize, but good shit this week, man.
Yeah, no. So I kind of like to consider this the driver's seat, actually, or the co-pilot seat, because I let you do all the talking and then I'm monitoring the controls. One thing I forgot to throw out there earlier, though, is this is our new Twitter handle for that new MLO sports show. It's at Handler Show. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
All right, so
check out that Peter Schultz interview on YouTube as well. As soon as this drops this evening, I'm going to put in the video right around this time link to go to that episode as well, because it was a really good interview.
All right, maybe we could throw in a link for those Super Bowl boxes, $5 Super Bowl boxes. If anybody wants to get in, I'm going to share them at the account at Toilets to Titles. Maybe we can share a link in YouTube. I don't know how all that stuff works because I'm not a brainiac like Justin there, but all that stuff, man. So we appreciate you. Enjoy this weekend. 2 big matchups, 2 huge games. I think we couldn't ask for anything more. And then enjoy the Senior Bowl next week. We've got NFL draft discussion. So there's only 4 teams who are left. The rest of us, we got something to look forward to. It's the Senior Bowl. So enjoy that as well. And we will talk to you guys all next week.